The political landscape in the United States can change in a single day. Sometimes it happens quietly, buried inside a lengthy government document. Other times, it arrives with a major announcement from the White House that instantly dominates headlines, sparks intense debate, and leaves millions of Americans wondering what comes next. Today, we're taking a closer look at one of those pivotal moments, a major White House decision that could have lasting consequences for America's economy, national security, businesses, and everyday families. Whether you support the current administration or strongly disagree with it, one thing is difficult to ignore. Decisions made inside the White House often ripple across the country and even around the world. Financial markets react within minutes. Businesses reconsider investment plans. State governments evaluate new policies. International allies pay close attention. And ordinary Americans begin asking the same question: how will this affect me? In today's video, we'll break down what this decision means, why experts believe it matters, who could benefit, who may face new challenges, and what could happen over the coming months and years. This isn't just another political headline. It's a story about how government policy influences jobs, prices, technology, healthcare, education, immigration, energy, and America's position on the global stage. To understand why this moment is receiving so much attention, we first need to understand how major White House decisions are actually made. Many people imagine that the president simply signs a document and everything immediately changes overnight. In reality, the process is much more complicated. A major policy decision usually involves months of planning. White House advisors examine economic reports, national security briefings, legal opinions, and recommendations from federal agencies. Cabinet officials often debate multiple options before a final proposal reaches the president's desk. Even after an announcement is made, implementation can take weeks or months. Some policies require approval from Congress. Others face legal challenges in federal courts. State governments may also respond differently depending on local laws and political priorities. That means today's announcement is often just the beginning of a much larger story. Political analysts say that major White House decisions generally fall into several categories. Some focus on strengthening the economy by encouraging investment, adjusting tax policy, or supporting American manufacturing. Others concentrate on national security, including military strategy, cybersecurity, border security, or international alliances. Some decisions involve healthcare, education, environmental regulations, energy production, or technological innovation. Each category has the potential to affect millions of Americans in different ways. Supporters often argue that bold leadership is necessary to solve complex problems and prepare the country for future challenges. Critics may argue that rapid policy changes create uncertainty, increase costs, or produce unintended consequences. The truth often lies somewhere in between, which is why understanding the details matters more than simply reading a headline. One reason this latest White House decision has attracted so much attention is the scale of its potential impact. Economic experts point out that even relatively small policy adjustments can influence consumer confidence, hiring decisions, inflation expectations, and long-term investment. Businesses constantly monitor signals coming from Washington because government policy can shape regulations, taxes, labor markets, and trade relationships. Investors watch closely because policy announcements sometimes trigger immediate reactions in stock markets, bond markets, and currency markets. Meanwhile, families across America are often less concerned with political debates than with practical questions. Will prices increase? Will jobs become easier to find? Will housing become more affordable? Will wages improve? Will healthcare costs change? Will education become more accessible? These everyday concerns explain why White House decisions receive enormous public attention. Another important factor is timing. The United States is experiencing rapid changes in technology, artificial intelligence, global competition, energy production, manufacturing, and international trade. Government leaders face difficult decisions about how to encourage economic growth, while protecting workers and maintaining national security. Finding the right balance is rarely easy. Different economists often reach different conclusions using the same data. Some argue that stronger government involvement creates stability and encourages long-term investment. Others believe reducing regulations allows businesses to innovate more quickly and create new jobs. These competing viewpoints shape nearly every major policy debate in Washington. Regardless of political affiliation, most Americans share similar goals. They want stable jobs, affordable living costs, safe communities, reliable health care, quality education, a growing economy, and opportunities for future generations. The challenge is determining which policies are most likely to achieve those goals. That is exactly why today's White House decision has become such an important national conversation. Over the next few minutes, we'll examine what happened, why experts believe it matters, the possible economic effects, political reactions, international responses, and what Americans should watch in the weeks ahead. Because in modern America, one major decision from the White House doesn't just shape today's headlines, it can influence the country's future for years to come. What the White House decision means and why it matters. Now that we've explored why major White House announcements attract so much national attention, let's take a closer look at what makes a decision from the nation's highest office so significant. Every presidential administration enters office with a set of priorities. These priorities are shaped by campaign promises, current events, economic conditions, advice from experts, and the challenges facing the country at the time. Some decisions are designed to respond to immediate problems, while others aim to shape America's future over the next decade or even longer. When the White House announces a major policy change, it rarely affects just one area of government. Instead, the impact often spreads across multiple sectors of society. For example, a decision related to economic policy may influence businesses, consumers, investors, and financial markets all at once. A change involving trade could affect manufacturers, farmers, shipping companies, retailers, and even the prices consumers pay at local stores. A technology initiative could encourage innovation while also raising important questions about privacy, cybersecurity, and workforce development. This interconnected nature of government policy is one reason experts closely examine every major announcement coming from Washington. One of the first groups to react is the financial community. Investors constantly evaluate whether a new policy could strengthen economic growth, increase business confidence, or create new risks. Stock prices, bond yields, and currency markets sometimes respond within minutes as traders assess how the announcement could affect future economic conditions. Businesses also pay close attention. Large corporations, small businesses, and entrepreneurs rely on predictable rules when making long-term decisions. Whether it's opening a new factory, hiring additional employees, expanding into new markets, or investing in advanced technology, government policies can influence both the opportunities and the challenges companies face. For business leaders, clarity is often just as important as the policy itself. Knowing the direction of future regulations allows companies to plan with greater confidence. Workers and families are equally interested in understanding how major decisions could affect their daily lives. Questions often arise immediately. Will this create more jobs? Could wages improve? Will the cost of living change? Could housing become more affordable? Will healthcare or education be affected? Although the answers depend on the specific policy, these are the practical concerns that matter most to millions of Americans. Another important factor is the role of Congress. While some presidential actions can take effect through executive authority, many larger initiatives require legislation. That means proposals may be debated, amended, or delayed before becoming law. During this process, lawmakers often hear testimony from economists, industry leaders, legal experts, labor organizations, and public interest groups. Their input helps shape the final outcome and can significantly change how a policy is implemented. Even after a policy is approved, legal challenges are not uncommon. Federal courts may review whether certain actions comply with the Constitution or existing federal law. In some cases, implementation continues while litigation proceeds. In others, courts may temporarily pause parts of a policy until legal questions are resolved. This system of checks and balances is a central feature of the U.S. government and ensures that major decisions undergo multiple levels of review. State governments also play an important role. Because many federal policies require cooperation between Washington and the states, implementation can vary across the country. Governors, state legislatures, and local officials may introduce complementary programs, adjust existing regulations, or challenge certain aspects of federal policy depending on their legal authority and policy priorities. Internationally, America's allies and competitors closely monitor significant White House decisions. As one of the world's largest economies and a major global power, changes in U.S. policy can influence trade relationships, diplomatic negotiations, defense partnerships, and international markets. Foreign governments often evaluate whether a new American policy signals continuity or a shift in broader strategic priorities. Economists caution that the full effects of major policy decisions rarely appear overnight. Some outcomes become visible within weeks, such as changes in market sentiment or business confidence. Others, including employment trends, infrastructure development, manufacturing growth, or technological investment, may take months or even years to fully develop. This is why analysts typically avoid drawing conclusions immediately after an announcement. Instead, they monitor economic indicators, government reports, and independent research over time to evaluate whether a policy is achieving its intended goals. Public opinion also evolves. Initial reactions are often influenced by headlines, political debate, and social media. As more details emerge and real-world effects become clearer, public perspectives may shift. Supporters may become more optimistic if positive results appear, while critics may reconsider their views, or vice versa. The media plays an important role in this process by reporting updates, interviewing experts, and examining how policies affect communities across the country. At the same time, viewers are encouraged to rely on multiple credible sources and distinguish verified information from speculation. Ultimately, the significance of any major White House decision depends not only on the announcement itself, but also on how effectively it is implemented, how it interacts with existing laws, and how it influences the lives of Americans over time. The potential economic impact and what experts are watching. Whenever the White House announces a major policy decision, one of the first questions economists ask is simple: how could this affect the U.S. economy? The answer is rarely straightforward. America has one of the largest and most complex economies in the world. Millions of businesses, hundreds of millions of consumers, financial institutions, and international trading partners are all connected. A policy change in one area can create ripple effects throughout the entire economy. For that reason, economists often avoid making immediate predictions. Instead, they analyze the policy's goals, its implementation timeline, and the broader economic environment before drawing conclusions. One of the key indicators experts monitor is consumer confidence. When people feel optimistic about the economy, they are generally more willing to spend money on homes, vehicles, travel, and other major purchases. Increased consumer spending can support business growth and job creation. On the other hand, if uncertainty rises, families may delay large purchases and focus on saving money. This shift in spending behavior can slow economic activity, particularly in industries that depend heavily on consumer demand. Business confidence is another critical factor. Companies make investment decisions months or even years in advance. They consider whether to hire more employees, build new facilities, invest in technology, or expand into additional markets. If business leaders believe government policies will create a stable environment for growth, they may increase investment. Greater investment often leads to innovation, higher productivity, and additional employment opportunities. However, if companies face uncertainty about future regulations, taxes, or market conditions, they may postpone major projects until the outlook becomes clearer. Another area receiving close attention is the labor market. Employment remains one of the strongest indicators of economic health. A policy that encourages business expansion could contribute to additional hiring in sectors such as manufacturing, construction, technology, healthcare, and energy. Increased hiring can strengthen household incomes and support local economies. At the same time, certain industries may experience challenges if new rules require operational changes or increase costs. Some companies may adapt quickly, while others could need more time to adjust. This is why economists often emphasize that major policy decisions can create both opportunities and challenges, depending on the industry involved. Inflation is another issue that analysts continue to monitor carefully. Inflation refers to the overall increase in prices for goods and services over time. If economic growth accelerates too rapidly, demand for products may outpace supply, putting upward pressure on prices. Conversely, if productivity improves and supply expands efficiently, inflationary pressures may remain moderate while supporting continued growth. The relationship between government policy and inflation is influenced by many factors, including consumer demand, energy prices, global supply chains, and monetary policy. Financial markets also react to expectations rather than just current conditions. Investors evaluate whether new government initiatives could increase corporate earnings, improve productivity, or strengthen long-term economic performance. As a result, stock prices sometimes move sharply following major announcements. However, market reactions during the first few days do not always reflect long-term outcomes. History shows that markets can change direction as additional information becomes available and investors reassess their expectations. Small businesses are particularly important in these discussions. Across the United States, millions of small businesses employ local workers, provide essential services, and contribute significantly to economic activity. Many small business owners closely watch government decisions because changes in financing conditions, regulations, workforce availability, or consumer demand can directly affect daily operations. Supporters of major policy initiatives often argue that reducing barriers to investment encourages entrepreneurship and strengthens economic growth. Critics may raise concerns about implementation costs or unintended effects on certain industries. Both perspectives contribute to ongoing public debate and help policymakers evaluate potential improvements. Technology companies are also paying close attention. Artificial intelligence, advanced manufacturing, cybersecurity, cloud computing, and digital infrastructure are transforming the American economy at an unprecedented pace. Government policies supporting innovation could accelerate research, attract private investment, and improve America's global competitiveness. At the same time, experts emphasize the importance of balancing innovation with responsible oversight, including issues related to data privacy, cybersecurity, and workforce training. International trade is another major consideration. The United States maintains economic relationships with countries around the world. Changes in trade policy can influence exports, imports, supply chains, and manufacturing costs. Businesses that depend on international markets often adjust their strategies based on evolving government policies and global economic conditions. For consumers, the most important question remains practical. Will everyday life become more affordable? While major policy announcements often generate immediate headlines, their effects on household budgets typically develop gradually. Changes in employment, wages, housing costs, healthcare expenses, transportation, and consumer prices may take months or even years to become fully visible. For this reason, economists encourage patience and careful analysis, rather than drawing conclusions based solely on initial reactions. Looking ahead, several indicators will help determine the long-term impact of this White House decision: employment and job growth, inflation and consumer prices, business investment, consumer confidence, economic growth, financial market performance, manufacturing and industrial activity. These indicators, along with future government reports and independent research, will provide a clearer picture of whether the policy is achieving its intended objectives. As the debate continues, one thing is certain: major decisions from the White House rarely affect just Washington. Their influence extends to businesses, workers, investors, families, and communities across the country. Political reactions, public debate, and what comes next. As expected, a major White House decision has sparked a wide range of reactions across the political spectrum. In the United States, significant policy announcements rarely receive unanimous support or opposition. Instead, they often become the focus of national debate, with lawmakers, experts, businesses, advocacy groups, and citizens weighing the potential benefits and drawbacks. Within hours of the announcement, members of Congress began reviewing the details. Some lawmakers praised the decision as a bold step toward addressing long-standing challenges, arguing that strong leadership is essential during periods of economic and geopolitical uncertainty. Others expressed concerns about the policy's potential costs, implementation, or long-term consequences, calling for additional oversight and debate. This exchange of views is a normal part of the American political process. Major policies are frequently examined through congressional hearings, committee reviews, and public discussions before their full effects become clear. Policy experts have also offered differing perspectives. Some economists believe that decisive government action can encourage investment, improve confidence, and help position the United States for future growth. They argue that clear national priorities can give businesses the confidence to expand, invest in innovation, and create jobs. Other analysts recommend caution. They note that even well-intentioned policies can produce unintended consequences if implementation is more difficult than expected, or if economic conditions change unexpectedly. Their advice is to monitor real-world data over time, rather than relying solely on early projections. Legal experts are paying close attention as well. Depending on the nature of the decision, questions may arise about how existing laws apply, whether new legislation is needed, or whether certain aspects could face judicial review. In the United States, courts play an important role in interpreting laws and ensuring that government actions remain consistent with the Constitution. If legal challenges emerge, the process could take months before final decisions are reached. During that time, parts of the policy may move forward while others could be delayed. Depending on court rulings and administrative procedures, public opinion is another factor that could influence the future of the policy. Americans often evaluate government decisions based on their personal experiences. If families notice improvements in employment opportunities, wages, or economic stability, support for the policy may grow. If challenges arise, criticism may increase, leading to calls for adjustments or alternative approaches. Opinion polls, public forums, and community discussions provide policymakers with valuable insight into how citizens view the policy. While polls offer a snapshot of public sentiment, they can change as new information becomes available and the policy's effects become more visible. The business community continues to watch developments closely. Large corporations, small businesses, and industry organizations often engage with government officials to better understand how new policies will affect investment, hiring, and long-term planning. Many companies adapt their strategies as additional guidance is released by federal agencies. Financial markets are also expected to remain attentive. Investors generally prefer stability and predictability. As more details about implementation become available, markets may respond to updated economic forecasts, corporate earnings reports, and broader trends affecting both domestic and global economies. International partners are monitoring the situation as well. Because the United States plays a central role in global trade, finance, and diplomacy, significant policy decisions often attract attention from governments around the world. Allies may evaluate opportunities for closer cooperation, while trading partners assess whether any adjustments to economic or diplomatic relationships are necessary. Global organizations and international businesses also consider how changes in U.S. policy could influence investment decisions, supply chains, and future economic growth. One important point to remember is that major government decisions are rarely the end of the story. After the initial announcement comes the implementation phase. Federal agencies begin developing detailed regulations, issuing guidance, and working with state and local governments where necessary. This stage often determines how effectively the policy achieves its intended goals. During implementation, officials collect data, monitor progress, and make adjustments when needed. Congress may also propose amendments or additional legislation based on early results and feedback from affected communities. For Americans following the news, the most useful approach is to focus on verified information rather than speculation. Breaking headlines often provide only the first chapter of a much longer story. As agencies release additional details and independent experts analyze the data, a clearer picture begins to emerge. The coming months will likely bring new reports, public hearings, economic updates, and expert analysis that help explain the real-world effects of this White House decision. Whether the policy ultimately achieves its objectives will depend on implementation, economic conditions, legal developments, and the response of businesses and the public. One thing is certain: decisions made in Washington can influence communities across the nation, shaping conversations about the economy, public policy, and America's future for years to come. Conclusion: what this could mean for America's future. As we reach the end of our analysis, one important fact stands out. Major decisions made at the White House rarely affect just one day of news. Instead, they often become part of a much larger story that unfolds over months and even years. Whether this decision ultimately proves to be a major success, faces significant challenges, or evolves through future legislation and court rulings will depend on many factors. Economic conditions, public response, congressional action, and implementation by federal agencies will all play a role in determining its long-term impact. History reminds us that some government policies produce immediate and visible results, while others take years before their effects become fully understood. That is why experts continue to monitor key indicators such as job growth, inflation, business investment, consumer confidence, and overall economic performance instead of drawing conclusions too quickly. For American families, the biggest question remains practical. Will this improve everyday life? People across the country care about stable jobs, affordable housing, lower living costs, quality healthcare, safe communities, and opportunities for future generations. Ultimately, these everyday concerns are what determine how citizens judge major government decisions. Businesses will continue watching for regulatory updates and economic signals before making long-term investment decisions. Investors will monitor financial data and market trends. Lawmakers will debate the policy's effectiveness, while independent researchers and journalists will examine the results using new evidence as it becomes available. Internationally, America's allies and trading partners will also continue observing how this decision shapes the country's economic and diplomatic direction. Because the United States remains one of the world's largest economies, significant policy changes often have effects that extend far beyond its borders. In the coming weeks and months, Americans can expect additional reports, expert analysis, congressional hearings, and official updates that provide a clearer understanding of how this decision is being implemented. As more information becomes available, opinions may evolve, and adjustments to the policy could be considered if needed. One of the strengths of the American system is that major decisions are not static. Policies can be reviewed, amended, challenged in court, or expanded through future legislation. This process allows government actions to adapt as new information and changing circumstances emerge. For viewers, the most valuable approach is to stay informed through reliable sources, examine verified facts, and avoid jumping to conclusions based only on initial headlines. In today's fast-moving news environment, the first reports often tell only part of the story. A complete understanding develops over time as data, expert analysis, and real-world outcomes become available. No matter where you stand politically, informed discussion is essential. Constructive debate, respectful dialogue, and careful examination of the facts help strengthen democratic decision-making and encourage better public policy. This story is still developing, and we'll continue following new updates as they emerge. If there are important changes, additional announcements, or new developments, we'll be here to break them down and explain what they could mean for you and the country as a whole. Thank you for watching today's in-depth analysis. If you found this video informative, consider liking the video, subscribing to the channel, and turning on notifications so you never miss our latest coverage of breaking news, U.S. politics, the economy, technology, and major global events. We'd also love to hear your perspective. What do you think this White House decision could mean for America's future? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and let's keep the discussion respectful and focused on the facts.